Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mastering English podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sam.
Today, we are diving into a topic that is just this invisible barrier for almost every single person learning English,
Hmm.
especially those of you who've, hit that intermediate B1 plateau. You're past the basics, thousands of words, but then you freeze up when you have to speak.
Oh, it's that truly frustrating moment, isn't it?
Hmm.
Where fluency feels so close,
Mm.
but it's just completely out of grasp.
Totally.
You have that perfect sentence in your head, all grammatically correct, great vocabulary.
Yay.
But the second you open your mouth, the sound just, well, it stops. Your brain just goes silent.
Exactly. And the moment that happens, it shifts your entire perspective on things. English stops being this, joyful tool for connection, and it starts feeling like an intimidating performance.
The performance you feel you're constantly failing at.
Right. You start comparing yourself to others who sound effortlessly fluent, and that comparison just leads to, well, panic.
And that panic is the absolute root of the problem we're tackling today. This feeling, it isn't just shyness or, a lack of intelligence. It's a specific, really powerful psychological deterrent.
And it has a name.
It does. It's called Foreign Language Speaking Anxiety, or FLSA. And it is, I would argue, the single biggest obstacle standing between you, the B1 learner, and true C1 conversational mastery.
So our mission today is pretty ambitious. We've looked at the psychological research, we've looked at practical toolkits, and we want to dismantle FLSA piece by piece.
We're going beyond just defining the problem. We're going to give you 3 distinct breakthrough techniques and an advanced vocabulary toolkit that'll help you sound confident, sincere, and most importantly, natural.
Yeah, we're going to show you how to unlearn some bad habits, how to shift your energy from that internal panic to like an external connection through active listening.
And how to cluster your vocabulary so you're speaking with precision, not just, basic accuracy.
This deep dive is all about actionable steps. If you're ready to finally move past that speaking freeze and have those confident conversations you've always wanted, then stick with us.
But before we dive in, if this sounds like a challenge you're facing, we'll be diving even deeper next week on this journey. So please take a moment right now to hit that subscribe button on Mastering English Podcast and give this deep dive a like.
Your support, it really helps us reach others who are wrestling with these exact same challenges.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this invisible wall. Let's start with the technical term FLSA. When we talk about feeling nervous, what exactly is this mental block?
So FLSA is officially defined as a complex mixture of fear or worry or apprehension that a learner experiences when they're expected to perform orally in a second language.
Ah, so the key word there is perform.
Exactly. What's fascinating is that it's not general anxiety. It's contextual and it's performance-based.
So you might feel totally calm when you're reading or writing, but the moment you're in a live speaking situation, the whole system just shuts down.
That's it, exactly. And the sources all confirm this is an incredibly prevalent issue. It's not a minority problem.
That's good to hear.
It significantly impacts a learner's ability to practice, to progress, and at the end of the day, to feel confident in their second language identity. If you feel this way, you are absolutely not alone.
It's interesting that it's so widespread because when you're in it, you feel completely isolated, like everyone else has figured out the secret. So what does this anxiety actually look like physically?
The signs are deeply physical and very observable. When FLSA spikes, the body's fight or flight response just kicks in.
Oh, wow.
You might notice your heart rate goes way up,
Mm-hmm.
your breathing gets shallow or strained, or even trembling or, fidgeting a lot. Your body is literally trying to find an exit.
And what about the actual speech? How does that change?
Oh, that's where the cognitive effects hit hard.
Yeah.
You struggle to recall even the simplest words, ones you knew 5 minutes ago.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
It is. Your speech might get really rapid and strained because you're trying to get the performance over with. Or, on the other hand, you might stammer, pause way too much, or just freeze entirely.
And in a conversation.
We see a lot of active avoidance of eye contact, which is the body just signaling this desperate desire to disappear from the interaction.
It's your body telling your mind, danger, retreat, don't risk the embarrassment, which of course just creates this terrible loop.
It does, and this is the core of the problem, what we call the anxiety avoidance cycle.
Mm.
It's a really harsh paradox.
Can you break that cycle down for us, maybe with an analogy? Because I think a lot of our listeners are running on this mental treadmill, and they don't even realize they can step off.
Okay, sure. Think of it like a muscle that you're terrified of tearing. So because you fear tearing it, you refuse to exercise it at all.
Right. Makes sense.
But if you don't exercise it, it stays weak and underdeveloped, which just reinforces your fear that it might tear.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is. In language learning, the logic is students who feel anxious about speaking, they tend not to participate in speaking tasks.
They stay quiet in class, they avoid social events where they have to speak English, they keep all their answers really short.
Precisely. And this non-participation actively impedes language acquisition. If you don't use the language, you don't acquire fluency.
So the lack of skill reinforces the fear.
Exactly. The reduced language development then reinforces the student's feelings of being incapable, which increases the anxiety and makes them even less likely to participate the next time. It's a really challenging cycle to break.
And when they finally do speak up, they often make another mistake, right? They prioritize the wrong thing.
Absolutely. The tendency, and this is all driven by that internal fear of judgment, is to prioritize perfect grammatical accuracy over conveying the message's actual content.
So they're trying to build these flawless, dictionary-perfect sentences.
Right, which means they only use the simplest, safest words and structures that they are 100% sure about.
Which is safe, I guess, but it makes the conversation so stagnant. It prevents them from exploring more complex ideas or, taking those language risks you mentioned.
They're communicating to avoid making mistakes rather than communicating to connect and express. And the result is this robotic, halting speech that might be accurate, but it completely lacks sincerity or any natural flow.
That distinction is so critical. Communication for accuracy versus communication for connection. So what drives this? If you look at the root causes, where do these fears come from?
Well, we can kind of categorize them into internal and external pressures. Internally, the biggest culprit is high self-expectations, which often just masks itself as perfectionism.
The fear of making a single mistake.
Right, coupled with this belief that every sentence must be flawless.
It's like demanding C1 output when you're still at a B1 comfort level. It's impossible.
It is. And what the sources show is that students often link their language errors to their intelligence. They mistakenly believe that stammering or forgetting a word is proof that they're just not smart enough to learn English.
That is just intense self-sabotage.
It really is. They believe they have to prepare and rehearse every single thing before speaking. So if they're called on unexpectedly, or if the conversation takes an unexpected turn, they just shut down. They don't have the confidence to improvise.
And then on top of all that heavy internal stuff, you have the external pressures piling on.
Oh, yeah. The primary external pressure is the fear of embarrassment and peer judgment. Think about a classroom or a work meeting. Students are so worried that their classmates or colleagues will judge their accents, their grammar, their struggle for words. They feel that if they appear inferior, they might be, blocked off from social or professional opportunities.
And this anxiety can actually be made worse by the very person who's supposed to be helping them, the teacher.
That's the tricky part, isn't it? While immediate correction is part of learning, the sources show that constant direct correction during a fluency task can seriously damage a student's confidence.
So being interrupted mid-sentence to fix a tiny grammar error.
That's one of the main sources of anxiety students report. It reinforces the idea that what they are saying is less important than how they are saying it.
So the key takeaway here, before we get to the breakthroughs, is really about a shift in mindset.
Absolutely.
Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being okay with not being perfect. We have to accept that errors are not failures. They're actually a welcome part of the learning process that shows you're growing.
Yes. A stumble, a grammatical slip that doesn't hurt nearly as much as the self-inflicted damage of silence. Because silence, as we said, actively stops you from learning. You have to nurture a growth mindset where taking a language risk is valued more than grammatical perfection.
I really want to emphasize that phrase, taking a language risk. If you're listening, you should start thinking of every mistake you make as proof that you took a risk, and risks are how you level up.
That's it. Now let's move to the first breakthrough technique, which targets the cognitive root of this stalling, shattering the translation loop.
Okay, this, I think, is the single most common mistake that intermediate learners make. It's the habit that makes you sound slow and, well, halting, even if you have great vocabulary. Can you define the translation loop for us simply?
The translation loop is basically a four-step mental process that absolutely ensures your speaking will be slow and unnatural.
Okay, take us through the 4 steps.
Step 1. You hear a question in English, like, what did you do this weekend?
Simple enough?
Step 2. You immediately and automatically translate that entire question into your native language. Step 3. You think about your answer, you form the content, you structure the whole sentence in your native language.
So you have a perfect sentence, but in Spanish or Chinese or French.
Exactly. Then step 4, you translate that perfectly formed native language sentence back into English word for word, and then you try to speak it.
And the whole time, the other person is just waiting. That delay causes anxiety, which makes you rush, which leads to...
Poor output. Because you're using the grammar and the sentence structure of your native language and just forcing English vocabulary into it, the result is often grammatically incorrect or just awkward-sounding speech.
And this is where we get those terms like Spanglish or Chinglish or Finglish, right? It's this kind of hybrid language structure.
It is. A classic example is if your native language puts the adjective after the noun. You might translate a beautiful dress as a dress beautiful. A Chinese speaker translating car might accidentally say four wheels machine. These little errors are a neon sign that the brain is operating in two languages at once.
So the solution here is pretty radical. You have to cut out steps 2 and 3 and force your brain to think and process directly in English.
That's the goal. But, and we have to be honest with everyone listening, breaking this loop is far harder than learning a new skill. You are trying to unlearn a deeply, deeply ingrained habit. It takes conscious effort and time.
Okay, here's a challenge for you then. Our sources say the essential tool for this is an English-to-English learner's dictionary. But, I mean, that sounds exhausting. And slow. Won't that just increase a student's anxiety?
That's a powerful and very valid concern. And yes, the initial adjustment will feel slower, but we have to reframe the goal. The goal isn't immediate speed, it's cognitive separation.
What do you mean by that?
Every time you use your native language dictionary, English to French, English to Spanish, you reinforce the neural pathway between English and your native language. You're training your brain to depend on that translation step.
So the English to English dictionary, the EE dictionary, is basically a tool for disconnection.
It's a tool for building a foundation inside of English. If you look up the word exhausted, and the EE dictionary defines it as very tired, you're building connections within the English language ecosystem. You're forcing yourself to process the concept without going back to your native language.
That makes sense. So it's an investment in speed later by accepting slowness now.
Precisely. We recommend starting with a basic edition, something like the Collins English Learner's Dictionary. You don't need a huge advanced dictionary. The basic level uses simple, controlled vocabulary to define complex terms, so the cognitive load is manageable, but the habit change is radical.
Stop thinking in your native language for vocabulary lookup. That's the foundation.
That's the foundation we need.
Okay, that's a huge shift in habit. Absolutely worth it. Now let's talk about shifting our focus. Once we stop thinking internally in our native language, we need to deal with the external dynamic. How do we stop focusing on our own performance anxiety and start focusing on the other person?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that brings us to breakthrough number 2, the shift to active listening.
Right.
This breakthrough is essential because it fundamentally changes your goal. You might think you want to be a fluent English speaker, but what you really need to become is an effective English conversationalist.
And conversation is a two-way street.
It is.
Yeah.
If you're a poor listener, no one's going to want to talk to you, no matter how perfect your grammar might be.
That's a tough but necessary truth. Let's use that analogy of how we learn our first language to really appreciate how important listening is.
Okay, think about the sheer volume of passive input we get as babies. Before a child says their first real word, mama or papa, they have listened for approximately 2,500 to 3,000 hours in their native language environment.
That is a massive, humbling amount of listening that we just forget about when we start learning a second language as adults.
And here's the problem. Once we learn how to speak, our listening skills actually get worse because our attention shifts. We stop truly listening to understand, and we start focusing only on what we're going to say next. Our brain is in planning mode, not receiving mode.
So active listening is the conscious reversal of that planning habit. It's not just hearing sounds, it's about mentally engaging with the speaker's message and their intent.
Yes. Active listening is often called empathic listening. You're listening to fully understand the speaker's meaning and their emotions, not just gathering data so you can take your turn to speak. This is the skill that builds rapport and trust. It's the social glue of conversation.
So what are the core skills of a really effective listener, especially for someone speaking in a second language?
They kind of fall into two categories, cognitive and physical. Cognitively, a good listener asks genuine, open-ended questions to encourage the other person to say more. They actively paraphrase and summarize what they hear to make sure they've understood correctly. They show patience, they avoid interrupting, and they try to be non-judgmental.
And the physical cues, I'm guessing these are pretty universal across cultures?
They're so powerful and, yes, universal.
Mm.
Physically, you need to show positive nonverbal cues. This means making appropriate eye contact, showing you're engaged without, staring intently,
Right.
leaning in slightly to show interest, and frequent, encouraging nodding. These little things signal to the speaker, I am here with you, and I value what you're saying. And that in itself reduces your anxiety because you're focused externally.
I found a great little analogy in the source material for this that really sticks with you. The word listen contains the exact same letters as the word silent.
It's a perfect reminder, isn't it? True listening requires you to be silent and fully present. If your mind is busy planning your next perfect sentence, you are not listening. You are preparing to perform.
Okay, that's the theory. How do we turn this into actionable practice for an intermediate English learner trying to improve their comprehension and responsiveness?
Let's start with media. When you watch English movies or TV, you have to practice without subtitles, whether they're in English or your native language. Reading subtitles just trains you to read quickly. It completely bypasses the auditory processing you need for a real-time conversation.
But what if their comprehension just drops to near zero when they turn the subtitles off? That sounds incredibly frustrating.
It can be. And that's why we stress the chunking technique. Do not try to watch a whole movie. Start with a manageable chunk, maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
Just 10 minutes, okay.
Watch it once and just accept that you only understood, say, 10%. Then go back immediately and repeat it. The brain starts to recognize patterns and fill in the gaps.
So it's about seeing improvement by degree.
Yes, not as an on-off switch.
Yeah.
The second time, maybe you get 20%. The third time, you might catch subtle transition words and you're up to 40. It's about persistence.
I love that idea. And what about using active listening in a real-time conversation?
This is where you use sincerity and validation. You have to show genuine interest. Lean in and offer a simple engagement phrase like, wow, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. This encourages them to say more, which gives you more time to process and think.
So you're delaying your turn to speak by encouraging them to continue. That's smart. And how does mirroring and paraphrasing work?
Mirroring is just repeating a few key phrases the speaker just used. Paraphrasing is stating their main idea back to them in your own words. These actions build massive rapport because they show the speaker, undeniably, that you were paying attention.
Can you give us a really solid example of a B1 learner using this successfully?
Sure. Imagine a classmate says, the new project deadlines are unrealistic, and I feel like management doesn't respect our personal time.
Okay.
Instead of immediately giving your opinion, you could paraphrase. So it sounds like you're feeling significantly undervalued, and the new deadlines are creating enormous pressure. Is that a fair summary?
That is so powerful. You've validated them, you've used some advanced vocabulary like significantly undervalued and enormous pressure, and you confirmed your understanding all without having to come up with some stressful original response right away.
Exactly. You've shifted the entire focus onto the speaker. This technique lets you use sophisticated English for confirmation and connection rather than risking an anxiety-fueled mistake.
That's phenomenal. Okay, so we've shattered the internal translation loop. We've shifted our focus to external connection. Now we need to refine the language itself. This brings us to breakthrough number 3, fluency beyond grammar, focusing on thematic vocabulary.
This is where we really move past that B1 plateau.
Yeah.
We need to stop relying on simple, basic words and start using language that is more precise, more persuasive, and far more expressive.
So we're moving from I am very happy to I am absolutely delighted.
That's the goal. Advanced fluency is about choosing the most accurate word that perfectly captures the nuance of your thought. And the best way to do this is not through random memorization, but by learning in clusters.
Let's start with the first cluster, which is notoriously difficult but so important for sounding natural, phrasal verbs.
A phrasal verb is a combination of a verb and a preposition or an adverb, and when they combine, they form a completely new, often idiomatic meaning. Things like put up with, come across, look into. They are the lifeblood of informal, conversational English.
The challenge is huge, though, because the meaning often has nothing to do with the individual words. Like, look up doesn't mean to physically look upward.
Exactly, and the sheer number is daunting. Our sources say there are almost 10,000 phrasal verbs. So just memorizing an alphabetical list is, as one source put it, a task you'll spend the rest of your life pursuing in eternity.
So it's an impossible strategy. What's the best method then?
It comes back to active listening. You have to train your ear to spot these verb plus preposition combinations in conversations or TV shows. Keep a notebook just for phrasal verbs, write down the sentence and look them up in your new English Learner's Dictionary,
And the ultimate goal is to develop the skill that native speakers use.
which is guessing the meaning from the context. If someone says, I came across an old photo, you can infer that they found it unexpectedly. We need to train our brains to develop this contextual guessing skill. It's a much more productive path.
Okay, that's cluster one. What's the second equally important cluster?
Collocations. These are just common combinations of words that almost always appear together. Using them is the shortcut to sounding natural. A native speaker doesn't think about them, they just sound right.
Give us some examples so people can start spotting them.
We say a cool breeze, not really a cold breeze for a light wind. We talk about a golden opportunity, not a yellow opportunity. When you make a serious error, you make a fatal mistake. You don't do a fatal mistake.
So the verb make and the noun mistake always go together.
Exactly. In finance, we have a deep recession. For fashion, a flowing gown. For speed, a fast train or a quick look. Memorizing words in these fixed pairs or triplets makes them more memorable and ensures your English sounds idiomatic and fluent.
Okay, let's get deep into the C1 vocabulary toolkit. This is where we replace simple words with multiple, more nuanced alternatives.
Let's start with emotion and intensity. This is key for showing sincerity.
We're replacing the word tired. Give us some powerful alternatives.
Okay, instead of tired, you could say, 1, exhausted.
Uh-huh.
This means extremely tired, usually from a lot of effort. I felt exhausted after running the marathon.
Right.
2, drained. This is when your energy is just gone, often emotionally or mentally. I feel so drained after that long meeting.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Then you have worn out, which suggests tiredness from sustained hard work, often physical. And fatigued, which is a more formal or medical term.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, lethargic. That's not just tired, but also lacking energy and enthusiasm.
Using drain or lethargic conveys so much more than just tired. Okay, what about strong negative emotions like replacing sad or angry?
We need more precision here, too. So 1, devastated for profound sadness or shock. I was absolutely devastated by the news.
Okay.
2, frustrated. That's when you're annoyed because you can't change something. 3, furious, which just means extremely angry. 4, exasperated. That's when you're intensely irritated by something that keeps happening.
I feel that one a lot.
And 5, resentful, which is feeling bitter about unfair treatment.
Imagine telling someone, I was devastated when the project failed. That has real gravity. Okay, let's move to subtlety in observation replacing the verb look.
This is critical for vivid descriptions. You have stare, to look intensely for a long time. Glance, take a quick brief look.
Right.
Gaze, which is to look steadily and with admiration. Peer, to look carefully or with difficulty. And scan, to look quickly across a wide area.
That adds immediate depth to storytelling. Now let's tackle the most overused adjective in English, important.
Yes. We need alternatives with different levels of weight. So you have crucial, which is absolutely necessary. This meeting is crucial.
Okay.
Significant, meaning it has a noticeable impact. Vital, essential for survival, like oxygen is vital for life. Paramount, meaning more important than anything else. And instrumental, which means it was key in making something happen.
I love instrumental. It shows how it was important. Finally, let's do the concept of change, replacing the simple verb change.
Things rarely just change. They undergo a process. So you have transform when something changes completely. Evolve when it changes slowly over time. Adapt to change to suit a new situation. Modify to make small changes to improve something. And revise to change or correct something, usually a document or a plan.
That gives learners so many specific tools. Learning these thematic clusters must help the brain retrieve related words much faster.
And that speed is critical because now we move to the final piece.
Yeah.
Implementing all this through a structured action plan. And that starts with deliberate practice.
We hear the word practice all the time, but it has to be deliberate. What makes practice intentional and require maximal effort?
Deliberate practice is systematic. It means your effort has to be focused and sustained. The criteria are strict. The task must be well-defined with a clear goal. You have to be able to do it over and over, and you need access to immediate feedback.
So just watching an English movie is exposure, but it's not deliberate practice. Can you give an example of a well-defined task?
A great one would be Practice describing a recent news article using 5 new collocations from the C1 toolkit. The goal is clear, the task is repeatable, and for feedback, you can record yourself and critique your own flow and usage.
That's super practical. But connecting this back to FLSA, we have to be careful with the feedback step for anxious learners, right?
Absolutely. While immediate feedback is good for accuracy, we have to think about the psychological cost. So teachers and students have to explicitly agree that errors are welcomed because they show growth.
So we favor implicit correction strategies over just interrupting someone.
Yes. Implicit correction means providing the correct usage after the student has finished their thought. This keeps the flow moving and nurtures confidence.
That distinction is so important. Okay, let's put this confidence into action with the most common and stressful scenario, small talk.
Small talk is the social glue. It's that light conversation that establishes rapport, builds trust, and reduces anxiety before you get into a deeper discussion.
But starting that conversation can feel like the hardest thing in the world for a non-native speaker. What are some good strategies?
First, your starters have to be open-ended, not just yes-no questions. And second, they should relate to the immediate shared environment. That's why talking about the weather is so universal.
Can you give us a creative example?
Okay, if you're waiting in a long line for coffee, you could say, "Wow, it feels like we're waiting for concert tickets, not just a latte. How long have you been waiting?" It uses humor, it acknowledges the shared situation, and it needs a conversational response.
That's brilliant. It takes the focus right off your speaking skills.
And to help our listeners prepare, we should be really clear on the safe topics versus the ones to avoid.
Let's start with the safe topics, the relationship bridges.
These are your go-to subjects. The immediate environment, so weather, surroundings, the music, food and local cuisine, travel, general entertainment like movies and books, and non-controversial current events.
And now, the pension creators, the topics to absolutely avoid in small talk.
These are the boundary crossers. Politics and religion, personal finances or salary, intimate relationships or family problems, and personal appearance or health issues. Just stay away from those.
So the rule is, start light, stay external, and look for shared connection points.
Exactly. And finally, a great conversationalist doesn't just know how to start. They know how to finish, the graceful exit.
Right, how to end the conversation without being awkward.
Confident people end conversations with grace. When the chat runs in circles, you just close the loop politely and warmly.
What are some good closing phrases?
Simple final statements. "It's been truly great talking to you, but I should probably get going." Or, "I really enjoyed catching up. I'm going to grab a coffee now, but maybe we can continue this later."
You're leaving on a high note and showing respect for their time. That's a masterclass in conversational confidence.
And it's the exact opposite of that anxiety-driven silence we started with. We've covered a huge amount of ground today.
Let's do a quick summary of the 3 big breakthrough concepts.
Okay. Breakthrough number 1. Eliminate the translation loop. Get rid of your native language dictionary and use an English-to-English learner's dictionary to start thinking directly in English.
Breakthrough number 2, become an active listener. Listen to understand, not just to reply. Use paraphrasing and mirroring to build real rapport.
And breakthrough number 3, build C1 fluency using thematic word clusters. Focus on acquiring phrasal verbs and collocations to make your language precise, natural, and expressive.
And we want to leave you all with one final provocative thought. It's about the nature of effort and wisdom.
It's an ancient story about a king who wanted to simplify all of human knowledge. He asked his wise men to condense it all into one book. They came back with a huge book. He said, "Too long, make it one chapter."
Okay.
They did. He said, "Still too long, make it one page." Finally, after months of effort, the wise men returned with all the world's wisdom condensed into a single sentence.
And that single ultimate piece of wisdom was,
There is no free lunch.
meaning you don't get something for nothing. Knowledge is just the beginning. Action is what matters.
Knowing these techniques, understanding FLSA, having the C1 vocabulary list, it won't change a single thing unless you take action and put in the deliberate, sustained effort.
So we're issuing a micro-challenge right now. Pick just one small action to take today. We challenge you to get rid of your native language dictionary and look up 5 new words in an English learner's dictionary before the day is over.
Or choose a 10-minute segment of an English video, turn off the subtitles, and practice the chunking technique. Watch it 3 times, aiming for just 10% more comprehension each time. Take a small, deliberate action, and you'll get on track.
Remember to subscribe to Mastering English Podcast for more episodes just like this. We are here to support your journey, every step of the way.
We really appreciate you tuning in and challenging yourself.
I'm Alex. See you next time.
And I'm Sam. Bye.